Some things just go together. Wine and cheese, flowers in springtime, and yes, books and bottles. We pair your favorite author with your favorite drink. Your host of Books and Bottles, Benita Johnson.
Hello and welcome to Books and Bottles. I'm your host, Benita Johnson. We are back for season 3. We're so excited about this season. During our off time, we met some wonderful authors and read some phenomenal books, and we are so happy to be able to bring those to you. We really appreciate you for being here and supporting us. We couldn't make it to 3 seasons without you, so thank you so much. Hopefully, you picked up some of those books and you've introduced yourself to some of these phenomenal authors as well. We're going to jump right in because today, I think this is the first time we have a book specifically written for young people. So we're going to invite on my new friend, Dr. Casey Morris, and talk about her book, That's Not Fair, a lesson on equity and equality. Hey, Casey.
Hi, Benita. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. So you're a trailblazer because we've never had a person on who wrote a book for young people. We didn't know how to pair with wine, but we figure all parents who have kids need some wine. So
Yes.
so tell us about you.
Yeah, I'd love to. So, my name is Dr. Casey Morris, as you heard. I have a PhD in higher education, which is focused on Black male student athletes at Division I level and them transitioning to predominantly white universities and institutions. For my career now, I work in diversity, equity, and inclusion for a gaming company where we also focus on making sure we're focusing on those underrepresented groups and creating opportunities and strategizing around that kind of stuff. So I guess you can say DEI is a big part of my life and what I stand by. I have a 6-year-old daughter, which is why I write kids' books, because I think to learn it sooner than later is the best way to do things.
I was going to ask you, how soon do you think? Because I work in some aspects in DEI, and so I'm way over 6. But how soon do you feel we should teach our young people about equity and inclusion and equality?
That's a great question. I think the sooner the better, really, in my opinion. I think kids are going to really learn from school and families and everything about different types of biases that they pick up just because we're human beings. And so to be able to counteract those different types of observations that your kids are making and unintentionally picking up is by teaching them in the right ways. And so not necessarily introducing them to anything that may be hurtful or something that's too complex, but more about some of the things that they can understand, how they can help one another and do things a little bit differently than what they see everybody else doing. So that's kind of where I focus in the equity piece for the younger people.
Okay. So, I was talking to a friend earlier today, and I was telling you were going to be on the show. And we were talking about, back in the day when they used to show you these films about the different person, and it was always the person who looked like us that was the different person, and we kind of had to conform or fit in. How does your approach take care of that and make our young people comfortable and still being who they are?
I love that question. So even with my 6-year-old, and I have 2 books actually. I have The Playground Queen, which was my first book, and then this book, which is That's Not Fair, a lesson on equity versus equality. All of my books have Black and brown individuals as the main characters who are going through situations and really making them so they are in some sense representing empowerment and feeling like they are like the king or queen of the playground and kind of switching those narratives that we've been showed so often. I think media perpetuates these cycles so often. And so I intentionally try to make books that make it so the reverse is actually true. So the main character is someone that may have not have been back in the day, and they are kind of making the way and teaching kids through their journeys within the books that they go through.
I think that's so awesome. Like now that we're older and we think back on some of the shows that we watched, and we saw no people who look like us. And I'm not talking about when we were, as young as your daughter. I'm talking about Friends and Seinfeld. we didn't see characters who looked like us. And so it was sort of like a norm, and we didn't think about it until later. But
Mhm.
now, it's like, oh, wow, there were none. So I think it's so important now that we teach our young people that you should see ourselves, you should see yourself, in these areas that typically we weren't.
For sure. And I can even think to your point, I'm think like the YouTube shows that my daughter chooses to watch.
Hmm.
There aren't very many YouTube shows with Black families being the people that are the center of the YouTube. You have to kind of type in Black families on YouTube or Black little girl on YouTube, and so to find people that look like her, normally when you think about the algorithms on the internet that bring you up to the top, the most popular TV shows or most popular YouTube shows, we kind of miss
Hmm.
out on that. And so even if I make books that maybe aren't seen around the world, I still make sure my focus is being at least another one so that, down the line we can see it. So it's more common for media that shows people of color, Black, brown, indigenous people being the focal point, and it's not uncommon.
That's a good thing. So you mentioned when you introduce yourself that you work with young athletes, and I'm guessing predominantly Black and brown athletes, and
Mhm.
they transition into PWIs. So how do you prepare them for that, especially if they grew up in urban or schools where they were not the minority?
Yeah, yeah. That's a good question. So my research was actually on Black and brown students at the Division I level, so basketball players. And you're right, a lot of the players were normally Black players, and their families come from areas. A lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of time, their families come from lower income areas where they're really focused on getting out of a situation where the family is in currently. So they hone in and focus in on basketball as the way out. And so to have to transition from, like you were saying, a community where everybody looked like them and then going to a predominantly white institution, a lot of times students face the same sort of issues that we face as adults in the working community. And so as professionals, we see that there are not many people that look like us at leadership levels, for example, in technology or some of the bigger industries where it's very corporate like. There are not many of us that look like us. So there has to be some sort of a transition period where we're focusing in on how can we bring the skills that we have to light and not putting too much weight on them, because at the end of the day, there are systems that are in place that is not, and it's not the Black student athletes' place to have to fix those issues, right? These are organizational issues that we have to work together to solve, and they just have to make sure that they're mentally strong enough to know that they're perfectly fine and they're capable and they deserve to be where they're at right now. And so coaching them on the back end, but knowing that it's not, the weight shouldn't be on them to change some of the issues that they may feel with being one off or one of the only ones when they do arrive on the
Yeah, yeah.
situation.
So, do you find that the athlete who goes into like the we talk basketball or even football, do you feel like they are almost protected differently from like a student like me, who I would just be going to the PWI? Because I mean, I would think, and I don't know, I never played anything, Jack Rocks, but if they have like being an athlete at those schools, the athletic programs got a lot of money and the students are doing their own thing. And I went to a PWI and I swear I never saw some of our star basketball players ever on campus. So, do you feel like there's a different level of protection from them, that they don't have the culture shock that a person like I may have?
That is an excellent question. And actually, a huge part of my research was showing the parallels from the Black student athlete or the Black student and the Black student athlete. And so, how there's differentiators. And it still was an issue of not belonging.
Hmm.
I think to answer your question, there's two pieces there. So, while they are on campus, they do have a sense of family because they're there with a lot of student athletes that have the same mentality and goals as they do. But if you think about long-term impacts of student athletics, and like you said, you didn't see one student athlete, one star player on campus, they haven't had an opportunity to be exposed in professional settings. They haven't had an opportunity to do internships. They haven't had an opportunity to be able to learn how to work with different groups of people that don't look like themselves. And
Mhm.
so when they're done with playing sports, there's a very, very small percentage that play professionally. And there is a sense of a loss of identity that they experience once they're done with college. And so what a Black student who may not have had all of the, the practices at 6 a.m. and weightlifting at 8 a.m. and these strenuous schedules where they were drained, almost too tired to be able to learn in class by the time they were done with their athletics, and not allowing them to do anything additional on top of their education and not really focusing in on that education,
Mhm.
it actually creates a barrier for them when they leave. And so if you think about it in a way where there's like a process, I guess you can say. So I think that there's different levels of transitioning. I think as a Black student, you do have to go through that shock earlier on in life. But as a Black student athlete, you've now lost 4 to 5 years and you're getting
Mm.
into a professional setting, no experience in internships, no experience with working with different groups other than your very little working with
Yeah.
different groups other than yourself. So you're learning from scratch while other people have had to learn kind of how to be an adult at a smaller scale on college that student athletes didn't get that experience to do. So
So
there's
it almost seems that, if you don't go professional or some type of semi-pro team, you almost starting over, once you're done from college or, if you even graduate.
Yeah, there's many studies on like the mental health issues that student athletes then experience because you essentially lose your identity when you're finished playing. You played most likely since you were 6 years old, 4 years old, trying to become this player you want to play. Become to get to college, you get to that goal of getting to college, then you want to go to professional, play in the NBA or overseas, but there's such a small percentage and overseas and the issues that people experience there is a whole other issue and
Yeah,
able to fit into what society has created as a professional societal worker these days is something that student athletes have to deal with a little later on in their journey, which I think is a little tougher sometimes for them when you think about the long term effects of it.
absolutely. So, from your book, since your book seems to target a younger audience, can you give us like one of a coping strategy that you would give to a young person, elementary school student who grew up in a predominantly Black or brown community, and then you may go to a private school, like my kids, they went to private schools, and both my sons were the only Black boys in their class. And
Mhm.
fortunately, I was very active. And so when I saw things, I was on it, but a lot of parents, you don't have the time to be at school every day.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, that's a good question. So I think that and I've been doing a lot of work too with private schools around diversity, equity, and inclusion, or schools that don't have much diversity. And I think for younger kids, just to cope with it really starts from home. And so making sure us as parents, we continue to uplift our kids. And it's early to introduce it, but to your point, your kids are dealing with what they may deal with, a lot of people may not deal with until later on, earlier, because they see that they're different, right?
Yeah.
So I think just to remind themselves every day, I tell my daughter to look in the mirror and explain to herself how beautiful she is before she goes to school, and explain to her that there are sometimes some people that are not nice, but to lead with kindness. And so in this book, particularly, the main point of the story was that the little boy wasn't treated nicely by his friends, and then he had to eventually, or sorry, this was my other book. That was her story. In this book, the girl had to figure out how to work with equity because the Black character in the book had less than the white character had in the book. And so the point of the book was to learn how to focus on giving everybody equal pieces depending on the needs. And so it really teaches people the difference from equity and equality. And so when we think about equality, if we would have given everybody the same amount of support in this scenario, which the
Yeah.
white boy and the Black boy, then it wouldn't have been equal. It wouldn't have been equal because the white boy started with more.
Yeah.
And so if we were to think about equity first, then we can divide things. So give somebody more help that needs more help. So teach kids that if somebody is by themselves, go bring them over to the group so they can be a part of the group. Don't let somebody sit by themselves. Sometimes kids are a little apprehensive. Like, I don't want to be that person that goes and talks to the kid that's by themselves. But when you think about equity, you really want to go and reach a hand out to somebody who's not able to be as friendly or openly or whatever it may be than somebody else. So just making sure we're extending a hand where people need that hand.
I didn't think about equity much until, I think it kind of hit me a few years ago. I was at a women's wine conference and they were talking about equity. And so sometimes when we see, if we got 10 people in a room and 5 are black and 5 are white, we think it's equal. But if all 5 of the people are the housekeeping crew and the 5 white people are management, that's not equity. And so, sometimes that needs to be pointed out that, we do need the extra help to get to that level where we create that.
Yep. That's exactly it. And it's funny you say, like, what would I teach kids? But when I think about my profession, sometimes it's about pointing out those type of discrepancies. And so let's see how many, for example, women we have in leadership positions. Well, we have 1, but there's 50% women in our organization.
Yeah.
In leadership positions. What about people who are making decisions? And so that's kind of, to your point, what I would teach at a young age, but on a smaller scale, because they learn that, and that can then transition to how they approach life after. It's okay to speak up if you see there's no women on this leadership team. It's okay to say, hey, this might not be the right approach. So.
Yes, exactly. So we're going to take a little break. It's time to bring on the wine. So I met this awesome person a while ago, and now she has her own wine shop in Virginia Beach, Virginia. So I invite to Books and Bottles Miss Tamra Harger of Tam Rays. Hello.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
I am great. How are you?
I'm good. So I have my wine. So let's talk about your shop.
Okay. So my shop is in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Like you said, it's a little small, quaint, cozy shop. You can see part of it behind me. I'm sitting in front of the wine shelves. But, my color scheme is very inviting. I designed my shop with those in mind of the ones. So sometimes when you go to wine tasting or you go to wine shops, you feel like you got to be of a certain stature there, or you got to be dressed down to a T and suit and tie and all of that. Well, I didn't want that environment. I wanted my environment to feel open. I want my environment to feel like you come in to hang out with your family or something and you just chilling. You don't have to dress a certain way. You don't even have to know anything about wine. But when you leave, you're going to know a whole lot about wine.
Yes. And you are a great teacher.
Oh, thank you.
I had the great pleasure of hanging out with you on Juneteenth.
Oh, yeah. It was amazing.
The wine tasting. Mm-hmm. So your store does do wine tastings?
Yes, we do wine tastings on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Fridays 5 to 9, Saturday 12 to 6, and Sundays 12 to 4.
Okay.
Every week. And my tasting lineup changes.
How do you choose what wines you want to taste?
It's really no real method to my madness. So the way I do my tastings is I always do a white, a red, and I try to incorporate a sweet as well so that I hit all the genres, so to speak, of wine, so that whoever comes in here for wine tasting, they get a sample of different varieties. And I kind of go off of I try to build your palate. I don't pick wines that are too broad or too different in scope to where your palate is all over the place. I try to have a good smooth transition in my tasting. So like when you came, I'll start with the bold and I always end on the sweet note.
Okay. So I commend you. I know having a wine shop has its challenges. It has its, the ups and downs of any other business. So welcome to the sisterhood. I don't know if you know, but I'm going to toot my own horn. I am the first Black woman in Virginia to have a wine retail shop.
I know that's right.
And that was 18 years ago, 17 to 18 years ago. So I am so proud of you and so excited for you.
Yeah,
so what are you drinking tonight?
What am I drinking? Ooh, so I got my favorite. It's Italian wine. It's a Montepulciano di Brusco. You can see it. I try to put it up.
Very classic label.
I love this. This has become my favorite wine since probably about October. My favorite red, and I always love reds. I was a cab girl, but I don't know. This one won my heart.
Yes. I like it because it's not like, we have a lot of people, especially in our communities, that, we like it on the lighter side. And then, we kind of transition into something a little drier. And I think Montepulciano di Abruzzo is a very nice transition. It's not over the top. I mean, it's dry, but it's not over the top. It's not going to pull your tongue down your throat.
Oh no. And it's a winner with everyone, actually, because I have like most of the people that come into the shop are new to the wine world and they're trying something different. And so when I have this out, I have them try. I always force them to try something that they're not used to trying. And when I have them try this, everybody, I hadn't had one person that did not like it yet.
Oh, good. So what are some of your like top sellers? Like, I'll just tell you, like with me, I used to have distributors used to joke. I was the joke, right? Because I could sell all the different types of Moscato and Boulet, like the sweet wines. So are you finding that that's still the trend?
I am. They come in, they like the sweeter wines. My number one top seller, you probably can see it right here. This is it's a reggae margarita wine cocktail, and it's sweet, but it tastes like a margarita. And oh my goodness, I can't look. This is my last bottle on the shelf. I can't keep it in. I can't keep it between this one and I got a pink port that I just got in. That's from Portuguese, and it's a sweet rosé that I have as well. I cannot keep those three in here. They come in and buy them by the 2 screens. Production is sending notes.
They're kind of like bullies, but they said you better send that last bottle to production.
Okay.
So we better make that happen because I'm kind of scared of them.
Okay, I got you.
So what are how long has your shop been open?
So my shop's been open. I've been open since April the 30th. So about 3 months now.
So still new. Okay.
Still new.
And so tell us about the name. What's Tam Rays?
Yes. Oh, the name. You can see my big smile because I love my son. Oh my God, he is my everything. So Tam Rays is a combination of my name and my son's name. My name is Tamara. My son's name is DeAndre. So I just took a portion of the beginning part of my name and the ending of his name and just merged them together. And he helped me with that. So we came up with Tam Rays.
Okay. So you raising them up in the shop and being a
He has always been a part of my vision and my plans. Even when I was doing my business plan and trying to map out what direction I wanted to go in the wine world, he was right there. I talked to him about it. And my son, he'll be 16 this month, actually in 2 weeks. But I talked to him about it because I wanted to start him early with learning things. And everything I do, I was a single parent. So everything I did, I brought my son along just so I could educate him on things that happen in life and how things should go. Even like when I was buying a house, he was there at closing. He was there searching for the house. He was there every step of the way. So I wanted to bring him along with this because this is something that is his as well. So when I move on, I want him to be able to pick up and know all the ins and outs and everything without skipping a beat.
Yeah, and it means a lot just to show our kids like what we're doing so they can understand that. When I had the stores, my kids, we didn't even have air mattresses. They had like blankets and pallets and TVs in the back of the store so they could play their games because they were young. But the boys were really young, like 4 and 6. But I used to give them the pricing gun and they put the label all on top of the label. They were awful, but it was still giving them, some ownership in that this wasn't your mama's store. This was our store.
Yeah. So I tried it out because originally I wanted to go into winemaking. And then as I did more and more research, I was like, that might be a little far-fetched at the moment. I tried my hand at, the home kits and stuff like that. And I was teaching my son how to do it and showing him. And then I was like, you know what? I talked to one of my mentors. She actually had a shop in Richmond called C'est La Vie. Miss
Gannett. Yeah, I know her.
And so I talked to her so much. Oh, I love her to death. And so she helped guide me on this path. And she was like, you don't have to go big, start small and, transition.
Absolutely.
So I have to praise her for helping to push me in this direction and encouraging me to keep at it and not give up. Because there was plenty of times I was like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it.
I understand. I've been there. So what do you see? I mean, how do you want to grow in this industry? And let me say this, because just remember, don't give up on that kit. Because my wine mentor, Gwen Hurt, started making wine in her kitchen, and she would tell you the story that it was hideous. But now she's doing great things. She's an importer. She has wine, whiskey, everything.
I saw that.
Keep going.
Thank you.
Yes. So all right. So last question for you. So what do you see? How you want to build your business and your brand? Because we want to help you do that.
I want to reach as many people as possible. One of my main goals when I started this journey was to reach people that look like me. There's some people that look like me, meaning African American or people with melanated skin in the wine world, but there's a lot that isn't, and it's a whole world to be had. There's a lot of people that look like me that are scared of wine and don't know how to approach it. And so my vision and my goal is to reach as many people as I can and to help them to understand wine and appreciate wine and grow their palate. So when they go somewhere like a restaurant or something, classy restaurant, they don't feel like the outsider. They're don't
not intimidated by those wines.
Because that was my experience. This is why I actually wanted to go into the wine industry, because that was my experience when I was stationed in Europe. I didn't like that experience at all. For one, I was the only melanated one in most of the places that I went, and I didn't know what kind of wine to drink. When Europeans, they drink wine with everything. And so I was like, can I get a Coke? I was that girl. So I was like, I'm going to try some wine. And I did. I didn't like it at first. I had a Chardonnay and it was gross. But I didn't like that. I was like, you know what? My coworker, he was Belgian, and he started explaining to me. He was like, you can't just down it. You got to take your time with the wine and learn about it. So, he would give me little tidbits along the way. And so I was like, you know what? I'm intrigued. And I was like, I shouldn't have to feel like I'm intimidated by this. I really was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to look stupid, or I don't want to look like the person that don't know, what am I doing? And I don't want anybody to feel like that, especially people of color, because we already get those looks when we go places.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Wine can be empowering. When you go in the grocery store and it's crazy, you go there all the time. They got so many things. Just to really be able to know what to select. This is a huge comfort, because God knows I bought a whole lot of bottles way back in the day.
Yeah.
But, my pride wouldn't allow me to throw it away, but I wanted to.
Oh yeah.
So I want to thank you, Tamara, for being on the show, and tell folks again how they can get to your shop. Give us your address. So if you're in Virginia Beach.
I am in Virginia Beach. My address is 5650 Virginia Beach Boulevard, Suite 106, Virginia Beach, Virginia 23452. We are open Wednesday through Friday, 5 to 9, Saturdays 12 to 6, and Sundays 12 to 4. You can also follow my social media handles, Tamara Wines, on Instagram and Facebook as well.
Well, I know we're going to see you soon, because I got a feeling there's going to be a wine crawl coming through your spot real soon.
Can't wait.
I definitely will be there. Thank you so much for being on. Dr. Casey, how can we get your book? The book is called That's Not Fair, A Lesson in Equity and Equality.
Yes, thank you. You can get my book from all the major bookstores pretty much. So Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, online. Or you can go to the link on my Instagram, which is at Dr. Casey's Books _. There's a link to my link tree, and you can get the book signed from there.
Thank you, ladies, so much for being on the show. Thank you for kicking off season 3 with me. So we're going to raise our glass and do a cheers.
Yeah, cheers.
Here's to a great season. and to lots of book sales and lots of wine sales. If we have authors out there who like to be on Books and Bottles, please send us an email to info@grose.com. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you for sharing. Until next week, we'll see you on Books and Bottles. Cheers.
Cheers.
Camped out at home for COVID? Join us, Indie TV, where you will see the talk shows, movies, drama, action, and comedy. Be the first and see it first. Sign up now for free at Indie TV.